right now, today, I fight the darkness that tries to overtake me from what's happening in America right now. I struggle with my language and trying to be a positive voice or a lightning rod for positivity and optimism, because I think when I had to recently explain to my 8-year-old little girl that what was happening is something that's been happening for a long time, I think I realized that no matter how much I wish it were better, it's really not better. And so my position has devolved. I don't think I'm as strong. Maybe I'm tired because I try really hard to serve everybody. And I try really hard to practice all lives matter. But it seems like no matter how hard I push for that, I'm just still a nigger. And that's really a struggle for me.
If you haven't noticed, I'm Listening has taken an unexpected turn. While we were working on a developing story with my barber Chico, the world plunged into a massive civil rights movement in just a matter of weeks. Here in Portland, people have poured into the city to protest police brutality and to proclaim that Black Lives Matter. At the time of this recording, the demonstrations in Portland have been going on consistently for 3 weeks and have even spread beyond the borders of the United States to many other countries as well. I hate to admit that protests have never been a part of my life. In fact, discussions around racism and sexism and even LGBT rights have always occupied a certain category of political that I just didn't want to get involved in. I felt like I had enough to worry about in my daily life. And while I like to think that I care for other people, for whatever reason, this didn't strike me as something that I needed to get involved with. But something has changed in the last few weeks. I don't know if it's that the voices have gotten louder, whether it was the videos I saw popping up in my feed, or if for the first time I found myself more curious than I was ready to be before. Whatever the reason, Emily and I decided to go down and to actually participate in one of the protests in downtown Portland. We gathered with a massive crowd of people, around 10,000 people, and marched down streets that I'd only driven on in the past. People around me were chanting, "No peace! Don't shoot!" and waving the signs, taking up entire sections of the road so cars couldn't drive on them. It was inspiring, seeing so many people coming together to protest against some of the most blatant injustices that we had ever seen. And as much as I want to say that I loved the entire experience, there were some aspects that I really disliked, and I morally felt that I couldn't get behind. There were other parts where I was just confused about, and I found myself actually leaving with more questions than I had to start off with. So I asked a friend of mine, John, to sit down with me to help me make more sense of what I saw. As you'll see from our conversation, there are some places where I'm definitely out of my element. Learning is, in fact, a messy process, and you'll see it happening in real time. This is I'm Listening.
It's really heartbreaking because it's not my job to convince someone. Someone wrote me this morning on my way here, another country, but he was an immigrant to that country, and he and his family were stigmatized because of where they came from, okay? And he wrote me and he said, "Hey, John, I just have a question. What is the issue? I see so many people say different things about Black Lives Matter, but what is the issue? Is it racism? Is it bad cops? What is it?" And I said, "Well, I want to answer you, but can I ask you a question?" He said, "Sure. What do you want to ask?" I said, "Have you Googled this? Why are you asking me? Because the same Google that's available to me to get information is available to you. Why haven't you researched this?" And he said, "Well, I have researched it, but there's a lot out there." I said, "Well, then why don't you choose what you want to believe then? Why don't you go for that? Why don't you go and see if you can feel to do it? Do you not see themes of oppression, towards African Americans?" And
I'm just sorry. I'm struck by that answer, because it doesn't seem like. Because I actually really resonate with your friend there. Like, there's a lot of information, and if it weren't for the patience and kindness and graciousness of many of my Black friends and family, like, I don't know that I would be able to get to a conclusion, because there's just so much information that, like, the convenient and the simple and the easy answer is just to be like, I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna let it happen. Yeah. And it's so much easier to check out. And if it wasn't for people who are willing to step in and I'm learning at a great expense to their maybe emotional and mental health, educate me along the way, like, I don't know that I would be able to figure it out. I mean, there's so many other problems in the world. How do I know that this is the problem that I want to lend my effort towards?
Sure. Well, for me, I certainly think there are a lot of other problems in the world. I try to live my life serving people that are oppressed. You know, I lend my voice and my heart to the fight against sex trafficking. I lend my voice and heart to, I've been to the Syrian border to support the redevelopment of and the trajectory of refugees that have been displaced from Syria because of civil unrest there. I've helped rebuild Haiti. I've helped directly with drought and famine in Africa. I have, I've cried with white farmers in South Africa over the past couple of years. And for me, it seems that it's all right for me as a black man to lend my heart and voice to these things. But the moment I put the word black in it, it's an issue. And so I could say, man, there's just a lot of issues in the world, and maybe I don't want to deal with this. But for me, my heart is for the oppressed.
Yeah.
My heart is for the displaced. And right now, and it has existed for a couple of 100 years, African Americans are disproportionately losing their lives and disadvantaged in a country that says that that's not the case. But the voice of those that say that's not the case, largely, if not wholly, comes from people that have lived in a place of position and privilege. When I told you I went to black schools, but because of my vocation, because of my career, I spend a lot of time, especially over the past 5-7 years, in non-black schools. And man, we were disadvantaged. I went to a black camp for summer. And I don't know that it was a black camp because it was, just comfortable or what. But as I look now back over the history, man, the white camps that I go and speak at, they are absolutely phenomenal compared to the amenities. Now, my experience, I feel, was richer, more incredible. And so if for my friend or for you, if you say to me, man, it is a lot of information to filter out. Well, how do you filter out all of the other things that you decide to lend your voice to?
Yeah, I think that is the challenge. I think that, like, what you're talking about, how you've been involved in so many different things, like, man, like, incredible. My hat's off to you. Like, but in many respects, I just feel like I want to say, like, dude, you're a better man than I am, because I haven't done any of those things. Aside from the ones that serve my own interest, I haven't really lent a voice for others. Like, I try and find if there's a way to be mutually benefited, then that's something I put my energy into. But if it's just something for the benefit of someone else, I'm being honest, in my experience, I haven't spent time rallying for other people, whether they be because of a sexual minority or a religious minority, or because of an ethnic minority. Like, it's like, I feel like for so many of us, just trying to, like, pay the bills is a challenge enough as it is. Yeah. And if I can just go home and like come back and have some peace and quiet in my life, that's a future that I seems appealing to me. Yeah. And so to get involved at any level, and it's not even like black issues or any other kinds, it's just to get involved at any level. I don't know that there's many people out there like that, or at least I know that I haven't been like that. And I don't know why it's shifted, and now I'm starting to lean in. Here's why we're talking, but I haven't been moved like that in the first 30 years of my life. Sure.
And I'm not trying to sound like a Brother Teresa here.
Okay? No.
I think I guess for me, Justin, that really is part and parcel what I'm saying. Being a black man, I can't afford to not care for those that are oppressed, because my life is a life of oppression. Yeah. I don't know that I have been targeted for disadvantage because of the color of my skin, but I have been arrested because I was black 3 times. Put in handcuffs, put in the back of a police car, and taken to jail. And when one time I was pulled over because my license plate was not illuminated. Okay. And I don't know a lot of people that aren't black that go to jail because their license plate is not illuminated.
Yeah. There was a period of about like a year or two where I drove around, no, maybe not a year or two, maybe like 6 months where I drove around without a license plate simply because I got new plates.
Yeah.
Because the old ones had gotten stolen.
Yeah.
And I was just too lazy to screw it in.
Sure. I don't.
And I did get pulled over once, but I certainly didn't go to prison for it.
No. I went to jail. It was just an overnight thing. I was released on my own personal recognizance, but
they had you stay there overnight.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Is that standard practice?
No, it is not. It is not standard
Did
practice.
they give
It
you
is
some
at
type
the
of
discretion of the officer,
Okay.
but that is not a standard practice.
I'm sure you asked why.
Oh, absolutely. But at the time, I was young. I was in my early 20s, and I wasn't as aware.
Uh-huh.
Okay, you know, I told you my heart and my
Yeah.
journey, and I didn't understand that this was something. This was in South Carolina, by the way. I was working there. I used to pastor. I pastored for many years. I was a Christian pastor of a church, and I don't pastor church anymore. Okay, but I remember once I had my pastoral robe on the passenger seat, and this is another instance. And the officer pulled me over, and he said, is this your car? I said, yeah, here's my registration, here's my license. And that officer, this is a separate time, took me to jail. I said, man, I pastor the church 7 miles down the road. He took me to jail, and he said, I fit the description of someone that stole a vehicle. When I stood before the judge or the magistrate, I don't remember which one it was called, he was called, I said, can I ask a question? Why am I here? And he said, well, you know, the officer said that you fit a description of someone that stole a car. I said, how can I fit the description of someone that stole a car if I'm driving a car that my name is registered to and my license, my identification matches? And he said, I don't know. You'll have to ask the officer. When I went to ask the officer, because he was there in the courtroom, the judge released me on my personal recognizance. I didn't have to put on an orange jumpsuit this time. I was still in my own clothes. This is about maybe 13, 14 hours after I got there. I asked the officer. He said, you don't deserve an explanation. I don't have to give you an explanation. And Justin, this is 10 years before I decided to serve in law enforcement, to serve officers, I should say, in law enforcement, because I didn't want that darkness to consume me. I didn't want to become subject to simply being relegated to racial profiling. I was like, man, we can make a difference with this. There's more we can do. But bro, man, it hasn't changed, man. It has not changed. And I think it's devastating to the protest of the oppressed. It's devastating when you say things like all cops are bastards, okay? That's devastating.
Yeah.
Because those officers have families that love them that they have to go home to. Unfortunately, like a popular comedian who gave social commentary, he said that it's just in policing, it's not the kind of profession that you can afford to have bad apples in.
Yeah.
It's like being a pilot. You don't want a pilot that says, I just want to crash a couple of times. You know what I'm saying? We just got a few bad apples over in the airline industry. It's just not that kind of profession. And I think that when you hear things like defund police, yeah, you have people, white people and black people and Asian people, Americans and immigrants that are part of these protests, and they bring a voice that lends to anarchy. It lends to a level of chaos. It lends to just sheer destruction. But that is not the overwhelming tide. I assure you that 10,000 people who want to defund the police or kill police or prosecute police for things that were actually procedurally sound and not racially instigated. I don't think 10,000 people in one city
No, of course not.
showed up for that.
No, I don't think so. Because it was actually really interesting in the protests, like this whole all cops are bastard chant.
Yeah.
Like I was just looking around who's chanting it. And they fit a particular stereotype in my mind as far as like far left, Antifa looking type.
Sure.
Whoa. And I remember them trying to get the chant started and people looking around kind of like confused, like, no.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, maybe just later on they got more support for their chant, or I don't know what happened, mob mentality. I couldn't say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that the majority of people feel that way. And I think that this is the challenge, is like for those of us who are ignorant to the ideas, an all cops are bastards or a defund the police. There's so much nuancing in what that means and what that looks like. Maybe not the whole all cops are bastard piece, but like the other pieces.
That's pretty clear.
Yeah, I think I think there's no way to spin that to be like gracious, but like there's other issues. Like no justice, no peace. Like in my mind, I'm thinking like, do I really mean that? I don't think that that's what I mean. That if there's no justice, then anarchy or like, what do you mean by no peace?
Right.
And what does justice look like? Then there's so much nuancing there. But in the absence of being willing to listen to someone or to multiple someones to understand what do you mean when you say these words, it's just so scary to get involved with that.
Yeah, and I think that there's a paralysis that happens, which leaves the disadvantage in the place of disadvantage.
Say that again.
There's a paralysis that happens when you have to face. I don't want to reflect all of these values.
Right.
I simply want to focus on equality.
Yeah.
But why there's a lot of other things here, and I don't know if I want to be a part of that. But that paralysis, it lends to leaving the disadvantaged.
Yeah.
And leaving the oppressed. My daughter taught me something not too long ago. Okay. Mm-hmm. She's 8 years old. She's amazing. Riley Madison, Adventures of Riley. Well, she's an adventurous kid, and she's absolutely incredible. And really smart cookie. Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, like Justin, seriously. And she got her report card, and this is a couple of months ago. Mm-hmm. So like a quarter grade, and on her report card, she had all A's, and there was one area that was a B. And
for me, that was always handwriting.
Well, for her, I don't remember what it was exactly. I'm like, she's made me scared to even say what it was because of what she said to me. And I said, "Oh, Riley, this is so good, but why did you get a B here?" And she said, "Oh, I don't know. I'll work on it." And I said, "Yeah, I'll help you." That wasn't the end of it. Okay. Fast forward, she got another quarter report, and she had all A's. Some of the A's were, 96 range up, and one of the A's was like a 91. I said, "Hey, why do you have this like 91 A?
Sure. Why not an A?
Why is it not like an over 95 A? And she said, "Dad, you remember when I got my last report card and you asked me why I had the 1B, even though I had all the other A's?" I said, yeah. And you look at this, now you have A's. She said, "Yeah, but now I have A's, and now you want me to have
AAs.
Better A's." And I said, "Well, that's a father just wanting more for his child." Mm-hmm. And she said, "Well, that's not what it feels like to me." And this is the smart. She said that. She said, "That's not what it feels like to me. It feels like to me, I'm never going to be good enough."
I'll be honest, in many ways, my first reaction to social justice is a kind of repulsion. It's an ugly, heavy, and all too often politicized thing for me to want to look closely at. And maybe you felt similarly when you think about refugees or Black Lives Matter or some of the ways people are exploited to make the products that we use in sweatshops. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I know that these things are happening, and while I know that they shouldn't, I'm unsure of my role in making things better. And even further, there are a lot of things mixed in with social justice causes like Black Lives Matter that I feel that I just can't support. I think the biggest thing for me was just that I wanted to focus on the things that were right in front of me, the parts of daily life that I felt like I had more control over, because it just seemed exhausting to try to think about the rest. So when I voiced all of this to John, he didn't go with it. Here's actually what he said.
I cannot excuse in good conscience the idea that there's so much to filter. I don't even know if I really want to do that because I'm just trying to survive. And I feel like our voices as human beings have to be lent to those that have to survive under the weight of oppression.
Talk to me more about that. Why?
I
get the idea. It's a noble idea, but also life is hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, man.
I have friends that have chronic illnesses.
Sure.
I have friends that are just, barely paycheck to paycheck, if that at all. And so it's the idea of, carving out a couple extra hours in the evening to go and be a part of the protest or to do this or that. It's just, to many people, it does feel like too much. I'm not necessarily saying that about myself. I'm not trying to excuse myself. Like I
know you're not. You don't have to do that.
As I'm pointing it out in my own life, I'm realizing that it's a fault. But I also want to extend empathy in both directions. I understand why people are just like, I can't. I don't understand. Like it's not possible.
Well, I'm not willing to excuse it because I live it. Okay, I serve oppressed people, and I know everybody doesn't serve in that way. Some people have made incredible contributions, and they've never protested with a sign to helping people that are oppressed.
What do you mean?
Meaning, some people have made financial contributions to organizations that fight for equality. Some people have simply decided to take a conscious position, to be aware. And that's huge. Just to simply say, no, that's not true at the dinner table with their racist family members. Just to simply say, no, they need help. They need a voice. And that is huge, okay? And that's not a disruption to life. That is living. And I hear what you're saying about surviving, but I just pose a question, okay, to those that are surviving and don't feel that they're under the weight of oppression. If you're at your wit's end right now, how would you feel if your capacity for emotional endurance to survive was cut down by hundreds of years of oppression? That'd be exhausting, man. I mean, look at me. I'm young. I'm good looking.
Yes, you are. You're doing all right, man.
I'm an amazing father. I'm an amazing husband. I think this is my own.
I think that knowing your wife would echo those sentiments. Of course.
I appreciate that. But I don't have time for that. But I'm not truly living, and I don't excuse myself, and I don't excuse anybody else. I didn't have time to go to the Syrian border, man. My black people in America need support. I don't have time to go to events to figure out how to stop sex trafficking. I want to protect my own child. I don't have time to protect somebody else's child. But guess what? If I can't help make this world a better place for others, it'll always be a terrible place for me. And that's important. And I'm not saying that as an American or as a black man. I'm saying that as just a human.
Yeah.
That's a value. There are millions of people that are protesting. But the truth of the matter is that there are ideas that are not, they're incongruent with my identity, with who I am. Does that mean that I will not lend my voice because it could be misconstrued? No, that doesn't mean that for me.
You're saying that there are certain elements within the general movement of Black Lives Matter that don't match up with your morals and values.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't mean that because of that, you check out.
It doesn't mean that, because I am going to lend my voice and my heart to the pain that the movement in general represents. And when I say the movement, I'm not just talking about the Black Lives Matter. I'm talking the movement of equality around the world. The heart for justice when it's appropriate. The People's National Academy for the Sciences, they did a fairly longitudinal study, okay, and looking at police brutality and how it affects people of color. In that study, they found that 1 in 1,000 black men should expect to die by police. They should expect to die, okay? Or be brutalized, 1 in 1,000.
Okay.
And that exponentially increases between the age of 20 and 30. All right? Let me tell you what's significant about that. I recently saw someone post a narrative, and it was published in the Washington Post. And I'm not saying you should go read the Washington Post. I'm not supporting any particular news media outlet. You got to do whatever feeds you, okay? But they said that basically they presented information that reflected that of the 1,004 people that die by police in the United States, only 25% are African American. But the number of homicides is absolutely significantly higher in the United States that are committed by African Americans. The number of violent crimes are significantly higher that are committed by African Americans.
So is the article kind of explicitly or implicitly saying like they had it coming, like they're violent people, so therefore they're gonna get violence as a response?
What the article is saying is that it's a false narrative
that they're victims.
They're
more so predators, perhaps, given the data that they're presenting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's exactly what the article is saying.
Is the data off?
The data is off because it does not measure how many encounters take place between police and the citizens that they serve.
Okay.
It doesn't measure that research. It doesn't measure how many things could have been avoided. It doesn't measure implicit bias.
So that I would get stopped for a traffic violation once, you're probably getting pulled over 5 times.
Thank you.
Is that what you're saying?
That's absolutely it. Absolutely.
Because if I'm getting pulled over, like in the story,
I want to be fair. The Washington Post was not saying that this is a truth. African Americans are not victims. I'm not trying to represent that. I'm saying that they published an article that presented that information.
and you're noticing that there's data that's missing.
Absolutely. It's not aggregated. It doesn't include a clear picture of what's taking place.
This is an anecdote, but I remember seeing someone on Facebook, a black friend of mine, saying like, I used to work in this community that didn't really have black presence or whatever, and I would get pulled over on average 4 times a week.
Yeah.
Because you fit the description for this.
That's
or
my
whatever.
brother-in-law's this year. He's 6'5", black man. He every month. Who pulled you over this month? Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because
it is funny to us.
Okay,
at Thanksgiving, we try to add up at our family.
Okay.
How many times did you get pulled over? Yeah, totally.
I laughed, and I actually wasn't trying to laugh. Like that genuinely came out. I'm like, oh shoot, I hope that wasn't out of place.
No, it was not a place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that just sounds ridiculous. Like, I mean, I get pulled over, but that, like, the majority of the time, it's because I did something to deserve it. I was speeding or fill in the blank or whatever the case is.
I was walking my dog, and we lived in a loft downtown Columbus, Ohio. And my wife called the police because there was a domestic disturbance. And, I think I'm like a part of the justice system. So I'll go down and help. And I had a Great Dane. I think you remember my dog.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, massive dog. We went down there, and my wife calls the police. And then I hear her say to the police as I'm running downstairs to help this woman who's being assaulted by another man. And she says, my husband is black. The person assaulting the woman is not black. Please do not shoot my husband. I am calling to help this woman. And that's the world we live in. That's how we
ridiculous.
live, Justin.
I'm laughing because it sounds like it's fiction.
It does.
It sounds like, and I'm sorry if it's.
It sounds like an episode of Dawson's Creek. I mean, it sounds like it's not real.
Yeah, and yet, like for her, the need to articulate that was so real. Yeah. Like that, she's like, if you're sending someone down, there's something that you need to know. I'm hoping that situation turned out okay.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, absolutely. But that doesn't fix.
You shouldn't have to explain every time.
You shouldn't have to explain, but that's a part of being black. You do explain. When I work with law enforcement directly, man, I love those guys, man. Of course there were racist guys. There were.
To you.
I remember walking into a facility once, and when I walked in, Justin, I want to admit it could have been for other reasons. It could have been because they had an aversion to religion or spirituality.
Because you're coming in
because I'm coming as a chaplain. I want to acknowledge that. But there was one door that closed every time I walked in. Okay? There were some officers that, and I'm not talking about a particular law enforcement agency, because in my opinion, the Columbus Division of Police, and I know that this is not easy to say, they're one of the most incredible teams in the United States. However, there are things that happen that we have to acknowledge. And going back to that paralysis of fear,
right,
or the paralysis of analysis, like, there's so many things, I can't do anything.
100%.
It's important. And I don't want to point out a single city. I feel bad that I've done that, but generally,
but this is your experience.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Generally speaking, the problem is that we have to be able to acknowledge that this exists. We have to build, just like there's a tolerance because of the survival, we have to build an intolerance to racism because we want the equality. And that's critical to who we are. And man, Justin, really, I'm at a point where I don't think it's my job to educate someone about why it's different for me.
There it was, that tension between what's fair and what John was doing at that very moment. While it wasn't his job to educate me or anyone else, he was here volunteering his time and energy to do it anyways. It seemed like one of those things that had no real right answers. Do we learn from the people who know best, people with first-hand experience, or do we learn from others and chance the fact that they might misinform us? I don't feel like I got a clean answer to that, but I did have the opportunity to ask a little bit more about something else that I was struggling with: the language and the actions of protest. We were talking about just these dilemmas that are happening internally as we're witnessing everything, as we're part of this experience, and like where we are presently. We both feel like, I don't know that protesting is something that I can get involved with again in good conscience again.
Sure.
But for me, that wasn't a cop-out, whereas before it might have been a cop-out. Like, I can't say all those things, so I'm not going to join. For me, it was a shift. Okay, if I can't protest in good conscience, how can I still lend a voice? How can I still be part of the solution? And for me, it was, okay, can I do protesting? No, I don't think that that's necessarily it. And then we tried a handful of other things, and none of it really has stuck, and none of it has felt like I can do so and go to sleep at night, But lending a voice in this area, asking my friends to watch a documentary, or creating content like this, I'm finding that there's a way for me to fight within my own armor that does hopefully contribute to the solution and yet doesn't compromise.
No, and Justin, bro, I thank you, because you have in some ways done more than holding a sign will do, because you decided to lend your voice. Can I ask you a question?
Please.
Would you have done that if you didn't see the protest around the world?
Would I've lent my voice?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something to be said of seeing how, like, this is one of the largest, I don't know if you'd call this social justice initiatives that's ever taken place. There's something to be said of just seeing the violence recorded and on social media. And so I don't know what the tipping point has been, but I know that for me and many of my friends who have largely been ignorant up to this point, that there is a tipping point.
Sure.
And something is different about what's happening now than what has happened even a year or two ago.
Yeah.
And it's so hard for me to say that this is why, but I think I hear what you're saying, that the fact that people were willing to get out there in the streets, it has in no small way influenced my desire and my willingness to do what I can do, even if that's not what I am willing to do.
I don't want to ever take on the idea that I have the answers. I have some answers, okay, and I try to contribute them as a thought contributor, but you're not really giving yourself credit, Justin. I appreciate you're humble, and that's beautiful, but you're really not giving yourself credit for how huge this conversation is. You've decided to listen. You've decided to be slow to speak and quick to listen. Do you know how heard I felt? Even as we were talking earlier and I was looking at some of the work you were doing, man, I had to I couldn't wait to take a break and just try to get tears out of my system because of the pain I'm experiencing. I had to just kind of come away like, God, for me, I'm a person of faith, and but I love everybody, especially people who aren't people of faith, because it seems like the people of faith do more damage than good a lot of times. But I had to come away and say, help me value this incredible opportunity to have this conversation. So you're not giving yourself credit. You have done an incredible thing by deciding to sit down and hear from a black man. You didn't say, John, give me your professional credentials, give me all the research, which I was prepared to do.
Which, when you told me that you were working on a master's in social justice or whatever, I forget, I'm butchering it. I was like, oh, I didn't even realize.
Social justice, yeah. I was absolutely prepared to lay out the journals, to lay out the research and frame it. You said, John, I want to hear your story. And you, I don't know how much energy you've given me, but I can make it through the day feeling like I was heard. And that's what people need right now. People need to know that they were heard.
As far as where I stand with all the individual pieces of social justice, civil rights, and social causes, I'm really not sure where I'm going to land. But I am committed to doing one thing, to creating new opportunities to explore what's behind them. I want to do the work of listening to people, both on this show and off the camera. I recognize that this is an area of my life that needs some further development, and even though you probably won't catch me at the next protest, I'll still be doing what I can to help using the tools and influence that I have. So if you want to join me on that journey of listening The good news is that we have more conversations with John coming soon, and I can't wait to share them with you. So one of the things that I forgot to include in this episode is John's free leadership course called Leading from Your Pain. It's available for free at maxlifeevents.com/lead. The course, as well as his YouTube channel and other relevant social media stuff, is linked below this video.